When you start looking at enterprise-grade video recorders, the first thing that trips most people up is the gap between the glossy catalog pictures and what actually works in a busy office or a small business lobby. You've probably seen a sleek 1U box with 10 gigabit uplinks flashing on the page. Imagine plugging it into a switch and getting flawless, crystal clear footage from every camera, and then once the unit is in the rack you wonder why the setup feels more like a puzzle than a plug-and-play solution. That hesitation is real, and it's why I'm doing this deep dive before you click buy. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Ubiquiti Enterprise Network Video Recorder, or ENVR, sits at the crossroads of a traditional NVR and a full-blown server. On paper it promises 10 GbE connectivity, hot swap power supplies, and the ability to mount either a 3.5 HDD or SSD for storage. Those are all solid headlines, but the real question is, does that hardware translate into a smoother day-to-day experience for a small to medium-sized deployment, or do you end up wrestling with hidden trade-offs that eat up your time and budget? First, let's talk about the audience that actually needs this kind of box. If you're running a handful of 1080p cameras in a single location, a consumer-grade NVR like a Hikvision or a basic Synology unit will usually be enough. The ENVR really shines for organizations that have already built a Ubiquiti Unify Protect ecosystem or are planning to scale up to dozens of cameras, multiple sites, or higher resolution streams like 4K. Those environments benefit from the 10 GbE uplinks, both the SFP Plus ports and the RJ45 copper port, because they can feed enough bandwidth to handle simultaneous high-definition streams without choking the network. In short, a mid-size retailer with a central office, several branch stores, and a desire to keep everything on one management console is a perfect fit. On the flip side, if you're a homeowner, a small coffee shop, or a startup that only needs a couple of cameras for basic security, this is overkill. The price point for a 1U chassis with dual hot swap PSUs is higher than most budget NVRs, and you'll likely never tap the 10 GbE advantage. In those cases you'd be better off with a cheaper, lower port unit and reallocate the saved money toward better cameras or a more robust backup solution. Now, onto the practical strengths that actually matter when you yank the unit from the box and drop it into a rack. The first thing most installers notice is the dual, hot swap power supplies. In a live environment, that redundancy means you can replace a failing PSU without shutting the recorder down. No missed footage, no panic. That's a real advantage for any operation that can't afford downtime, like a parking garage with 24/7 surveillance or a hospital wing where continuous recording is mandatory. The storage options are flexible, too. You can slide in a traditional 3.5 HDD if you need terabytes of cheap capacity for long-term retention, or opt for an SSD if you prefer faster write speeds and quieter operation. Because the ENVR uses standard drive bays, you're not locked into a proprietary format. Swapping drives out for upgrades or replacements is a straightforward process. In practice, this meant one of my colleagues could upgrade from a 2 TB HDD to a 4 TB SSD during a scheduled maintenance window, and the transition took less than 15 minutes with no data loss. Connectivity is the next area where the ENVR shows its worth. The two 10 GbE SFP Plus slots let you bond the recorder directly to a 10 GbE uplink on a Unify Switch Pro or to a fiber link between sites. I've seen a real-world deployment where a retail chain linked each store's ENVR back to a central data center via SFP Plus over fiber, allowing the central team to pull live video from any location with virtually zero latency. The additional 10 GbE RJ45 port gives you a fallback copper connection, helpful if you don't have fiber ready yet. That flexibility helps future-proof the setup. You can start with copper and upgrade to fiber without swapping the recorder. The user interface, managed through Unify Protect, is where the ENVR's integration really shines. Because it lives inside the same ecosystem as Ubiquiti's access points, switches, and gateways, you can control cameras, recordings, and network settings from a single dashboard. For an IT admin already familiar with Unify, the learning curve is minimal. In the field, this translates to less time spent juggling separate management consoles and more time focusing on security policies. However, there are also some practical weaknesses that you'll hit once the ENVR is live. The biggest is the need for a robust 10 GbE infrastructure. If your existing network is still on 1 GbE, you'll have to invest in new switches or fiber runs to actually use the 10 GbE ports. Without that, the recorder defaults to lower speeds, and the performance benefit you paid for disappears. In some smaller deployments, that extra cost can offset the perceived savings of buying a single, high-end recorder versus multiple lower-cost units. Another nuance is the lack of a built-in battery backup. A hot swap PSUs protect against